Wow, look at that. Thursday afternoon, markets are doing what they do best. We're seeing a lot of volatility in the tech sector. We're seeing the major indices down. Got some news from Country Garden, and also everything you need to know in crypto on today's episode of Money Never Sleeps. Good afternoon, everyone. We're back with Money Never Sleeps. I'm joined with a special guest today, Mr. House. I'll allow you to introduce yourself because you are a smarter man than I think J-Web and I combined. So the floor is all yours, bud.
Yeah, what's good, everyone? Pleasure to join Kevin here today while J-Web is out traveling. Stoked to be here. Big fan of global history and kind of how the macro is tied in and influenced over time. Spent a bunch of time in college, had a co-major studying Russian language and Eastern European history, so got a little bit of a focus in that region in the modern day and kind of following that. And then additionally, just big proponent of blockchain and following the crypto market. So stoked to be helping out Kevin and J-Web with Money Never Sleeps.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, man. It's been a wild, 24 hours. Obviously, we saw what happened to NVIDIA yesterday. Stellar fucking earnings, just absolutely kicked every single bear's teeth in. It almost seems like it was a bad idea to be short in NVIDIA going into it because you kind of knew that it was going to go up regardless. I think the move was very much calculated and seeing the price going up into yesterday's earnings, seeing the post hours, and then as soon as we opened the market today, it just reversed everything that it pretty much gained. It's up a little bit right now, but nothing too crazy. We're still a lot of those other stocks too that were going up with the NASDAQ with NVIDIA also seeing some pullback. I think the biggest one is probably Netflix. I haven't taken a look at Tesla today. We can pull that up in a minute, but it looks like Tesla's down about 2% or so today. But yeah, this is a really weird time in the markets. I feel like we're in a place right now where we're seeing, some optimism. People are getting excited about some of the earnings. We're going into Q4, next month, and once we finish out Q3 the next month, and we go into Q4, obviously October. I said that wrong earlier, but yeah, it seems like we're going to start seeing a lot more trading volume. But I think we're getting a little bit of taste of what's to come, right? It seems like they're selling off every rally and it's completely reversed within the next day or so in the major indices. Is that what you're seeing as well, or do you think that there's something else afoot?
Yeah, I mean, to put it in less academic terms, I feel like it's no one wants to get caught holding the bag, right? Everyone's kind of playing hot potato. Like we're seeing a lot of chop week over week, month over month, just kind of testing different levels and then instantly just bouncing off them, right? So I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty and people are taking gains where they can find them, but they're also it's kind of an indecisive. Do I want to keep cash on the sidelines, or can I get something active and pull a quick gainer real quick?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why a lot of people are also entering the money market too, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
seeing a lot of people that are just like, okay, I feel comfortable with these 6 month T bills. You and I were talking about that before the show. I mean, even some of these lower time frame ones, it's like these are amazing returns. We haven't seen these in such a long period of time, and when there's so much uncertainty, and you're seeing the market's absolutely selling off, after taking a pretty good leg up. I mean, it seems like that might be the safer bet. And I think a lot of this is, I mean, we'll talk about it later with, crypto. We're seeing a lot of people who are just kind of like every man for himself, that mentality of, hey, I don't want to get caught with this bag, but I definitely want to maximize profits right here. And, for some people that are running hedge funds, maybe, putting some of their clients' money in some of these money markets to get a decent yield that you can't complain about, over time, what, 5.5%. I mean, that's nothing that you should be complaining about when we're technically still, at least in crypto, in a bear market. The stock market's a little bit different. It's in a technical bull market for the time being, or it was. But yeah, it's I think that's the move right now. I want to pull up Nvidia right now, just because we got to look at. I want to look at this gap that we formed yesterday in the post market. It's really, I mean, it's almost like a perfect scenario to pretty much just slap in everyone's face. But if we look at Nvidia here, it shot up all the way to around, let's see. opened 502 today, closed all the way. So I mean, we went up all the way to 501. That's where it opened. Obviously, it was a lot higher in the post market. It was like 510, I believe, around there. But yeah, we were above this blue rectangle that we had shown on the show yesterday, and within the open to where we currently are, we've filled that entire gap. So that was a pretty much a big pool of liquidity that was just there. We closed it. Now we're sitting around 480, which is still pretty high for NVIDIA. I saw that one tweet that you sent out, or I think you just sent it to me about Martin Shkreli,
Mm-hmm.
saying that NVIDIA might be, was it a $10 trillion market cap in the future?
Yeah, he said low conviction, but that's where he's placing the bet. And I don't know. I mean, he's been really active in just throwing out a lot of different. I wouldn't call them like theses or hypotheses even, but just he's been throwing out a lot of hot takes both in the traditional finance and crypto markets. So I'm interested to see if any of them come to fruition and where they end up ultimately, because you never know if it's going to be one of those he's calling it now or he's calling it 5 years later because he didn't give a time frame. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's thinking a little bit longer term when it comes to this. My main reason is we're seeing pretty much across the board the stock market is kind of underperforming, and we're seeing very few assets that are doing extremely well. Right, these are the anomalies in the stock market. Nvidia being one of them. Right, I mean, put all-time highs just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And when we look at this, I mean, this is absolutely insane on the weekly how much it shot up, and we're oversold on the weekly. I'm really not worried about technicals at this point because I think market psychology and anything on the global scale and the macro, outlook, I think that's going to impact price a lot more than just these stochastic RSIs. I think we have our price gaps like we filled the one today, but I think that's, maybe we can look at these on more of the macro because I know the monthly is overbought. We're pretty much overbought. I mean, I don't even care if the weekly says we're oversold. This is overbought to me. This is extremely frothy. We're seeing peak euphoria, I think, for NVIDIA, and, we're seeing it for a few stocks. This is namely the number one, though. I think that even though we're seeing some gains here, we have to look at the major indices. Like if we look at the Dow right now, we're down 260 points today. The NASDAQ is down about 250, and then the S&P is under 4,400. It is at 4394. So that's it's about 42 points down for the day. We're getting some really exciting news. They did extremely well, but then we look at, the major indices. What are they doing, right? And, very few stocks can pull this market together. And if we see everything start to go down and we're in a place where I think there is a huge liquidity crunch coming, and I think we've already seen a lot of signs of that in, Asian markets, especially with the Hang Seng index, we're seeing a lot of that. We'll talk about Country Garden in a few minutes, but this is a place where there might be some money pulled out of because people are going to definitely need to have some cash on hand if things start to go south, which I think the show is a believer that things will probably get worse before they get better in the short term, especially with all the debt that is accumulated, internationally and domestically and just on the individual and institutional level. Looking at this right now with NASDAQ, obviously we bounced off this and we didn't even push up that much, right? We shot up. This is the weekly, my bad. We shot up yesterday pretty good, and then we got pretty much a bearish engulfing candle right after. So that's the sign that, hey, we're selling every single rally. We don't want to be caught holding that bag, and we're in a place where we're going to take profit every chance we get. We're not going to let it ride, and I think that's a dangerous place. It might be a dangerous place for NVIDIA because if there's $1 trillion in that market cap, there might be pulling out of that. Maybe not 50% like we were saying, but maybe like 15 to 20%. That's very possible.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting too because you and Jay have discussed the other day ARM is getting prepared for what could be, one of the biggest IPOs in history. So it's just that continual trend of, people are really looking for the chip makers and there's value in that. So, looking at the long term of the US potentially stopping US chip makers from selling in China, I think it could drive some competition globally between chip makers, and I think that could be perhaps part of Shkreli's thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like hot topics just chips right now, just like a few years ago, everything was big, Bitcoin. I think these things have these peaks and valleys, and I think we're closer to the peak than we are to the valley. And that means that there is opportunity if you know how to trade that. Not telling you what to do, but it just definitely seems that's the outlook with ARM coming out, next month, that IPO. And that's going to be I think history is going to be a good reminder of what's possibly going to be the outcome of that. Again, that could be good or bad in the short term versus the long term, right? But let's go into the DXY, right? Because we haven't talked about the DXY in the show in a long time. And yes, the dollar is very boring, right? We want to see massive returns, but we want to see how this is going to definitely affect, risk assets, right? And we could be seeing a lot of this selling off leading into the DXY pumping. So we were in charting this, this bull flag right here, lower highs and lower lows. Been just trending in this since, I don't know, February, November of 2022. Fuck, that's a long time we've been in this trend. But we can see that we're near the top of this and we're completely overbought on the daily, right? The weekly itself, we look like we're getting close to the overbought. And then if we look at the monthly, we're still got plenty of room to the upside. So this, I think, is a make or break period for the dollar. And we quietly shot up to 104 pretty much. I think the height of it was 103.989. So we're right there. We're knocking on the door of 104. What does that mean for risk assets? Well, if we break this channel, which we tend to break, to the upside whenever we're putting in lower lows and lower highs, we could potentially see a pretty good pullback for a lot of things. And it's just adding up in a really weird time because we're going out of Q3. Traders are coming back into, markets September, October. Q4 is going to be beginning. We didn't get the greatest earnings season. I think that we saw, some misses, some hits, but at the same time, I think traders reacted negatively for the most part. And we're going into the end of the year where people are definitely going to start taking profit. And maybe this is the place where the dollar does take off because risk assets are just going to sell off here, right? I think that if we close above 104 on the weekly, I think there's a good chance we can go for that 105.651. What brings that? I have no idea. I think the dollar does trade off news. And if there is any news that's coming out, it's likely going to be PCE data that comes out next week, or it could be even tomorrow. Jerome Powell is going to speak, and him being dovish or hawkish could definitely have an impact on the dollar's performance, going into the weekly close.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be really interesting. This isn't something I'm as versed in following the dollar per se. But yeah, I mean, when you look at just the overall state of the U.S. and looking at a lot of those longer term considerations, like the credit situation that we have, student loan debt, and then also something one of my buddies was telling me who works in mortgages and bank financing for loans is that HELOCs are at pretty high rate. I think the highest they've been in the past 2 years is a national average. So for those who don't know what a HELOC is, it's a home equity line of credit. So that kind of ties into the overall credit situation where if your credit cards are maxed out or you have a lot of debt, you're tapping into the equity of your home, which isn't a fixed rate, right? That's variable. So if you're messing around, you already have a lot of debt built up, you're taking out a line of credit on the equity of your home, and all of a sudden rates spike up. I mean, that can be some massive turbulence following.
I did not even know that was happening. That's news to me. That sounds devastating if that plays out that way. And again, we're talking about inflation. Looks like there's a chance they could spike up. And again, that could be from whether it was energy costs or we've seen the price of goods have absolutely increased. Again, that's variable whether they exchange the basket of goods, items. They did that in the past. It's possible they could do it again to mitigate some of the damages of inflation on public sentiment. But yeah, it's absolutely insane that that's more debt that individuals are just accumulating. And if we expect rates to go up, like I think they will. I honestly believe we have at least one rate hike still left in the market this year. Watch out. I mean, that could be another bubble that's just going to burst with this entire credit. Some people are calling it the credit event. I think this is the big come down. Something's going to happen. Something's going to give. You just can't have that much debt out there before someone calls bullshit. And that could lead to some type of margin call, whether it's on a global scale or just in it's going to probably be global scale. Everyone looks pretty fucked right now. But yeah, dollar right now, I think it just went up to 104, got rejected. Interesting, but we'll keep an eye on that. Let's talk about Country Garden for a little bit because this is one that I don't know if too many people know what's been happening recently, but Fitch just downgraded them last night from a triple B minus to a double B plus, and they put them on the warning list for their credit. So it's really interesting to see that once again. This is another very similar to Evergrande situation where the property market, people are terrified, and this has absolutely been killing the Chinese stock market. The Hang Seng has been downwards. We just got news that they're going to be removing them September 4th from the index, which is I don't know if that's a good thing for them just in terms of optics, or if that's actually going to be beneficial for the market itself. We'll see. But this is pretty big news. And again, this is not making headlines anywhere, but we can see that there's still issues in credit internationally. And this is kind of tying into what we talked about earlier, that every man for himself, right? Because we're seeing treasury sell off. That's why we're also seeing treasuries go up in value. And people are just trying to offload some of their debt. The debt market's absolutely insane right now. Between China and Japan, I don't know if their countries are doing much other than trying to defend their currency a little bit. But if they start to sell off, this is another this could be another mass sell off spiral where people will start to shift their money because maybe treasuries are lucrative. But again, is that a dangerous thing to be doing when the rates seem a little too good to be true? I have no idea.
Yeah, no, and I think what's kind of not funny, but almost peculiar about the situation is Country Gardens kind of shifting the blame to one of their contractors. They're saying, "Oh no, this is up to I think they're Shenyang Tingye Construction." So they have projects contracted out, and so they're saying, "No, we're paying our direct employees, but the employees that aren't getting paid, that's up to your contractor." And the contractor saying by the end of the month we'll pay everyone. So it's there's still like a lot of uncertainty. No one's really owning up. And then Nomura said Country Garden still has about 1 million homes they are needing to complete. So you don't complete those, it's another thing. You've just wasted a bunch of money on all the construction materials for homes that aren't going to be able to be lived in. And yeah, not great.
Yeah, it's not great at all. And we saw the Hang Seng absolutely just like tumble over the past few weeks. It's had a little bit of a recovery recently. Obviously, I think the news of this is good, but again, that could be just again, we never know what nations are doing, right? There's always something that we don't know, and that's why we're outsiders, right? We're outsider trading. We don't if we knew, we wouldn't be doing this YouTube show, but we don't know. But we can follow the narrative, and I think that the thing here that we're watching is that China is definitely taking steps to protect and keep this contagion as contained as possible. And I think this is one step to keep it out of the public sector, where it could definitely impact a lot of investors and a lot of money. Um, does that mean that they're safe? Absolutely no idea. Probably not. I think that the contagion is still going to spread regardless. There's just a property crisis right now in China, and with that debt, and that's very similar to what we're seeing here in the U.S. Commercial real estate is one thing, and then we also have obviously, we're operating on more debt than income coming in. So just another thing to keep an eye on. This is we're fighting a losing battle, it seems, internationally, domestically. I think that we're going to see definitely something come to a head fairly soon. Spells I smelled just absolute disaster, but again, I'm also chicken little, so we can move on from that and let's talk about something very fun. We're going to do some crypto, right? Is there anything you see in crypto right now that you think is worth talking about? We can pull up the chart, we could look at it, and we can discuss, and then we'll end with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, we're going to wait for that move.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin is definitely one of the things that I'm following pretty closely. But you guys have been calling it out because I've been badgering you and JWeb about the narrative of so optimism. They really just have seemed to be working a lot in the shadows up until now, which isn't necessarily the case, but a lot of teams are starting to build off of the op stack. And when you look at the chart too, when a lot of carnage was being seen, they seem to recover a lot faster with not a lot of volume. So I'm not sure what exactly was up with that, but I mean, you've got Base coming in. So Coinbase is layer 2, building on the op stack. And one of the big appealing functions of, or not necessarily functions, but features of building on Optimism is you can use their stack completely open source. So you don't need their permission. But then also there's kind of the debate between zero knowledge and optimistic rollups. So when you're looking at that from the security perspective, the op stack allows you to, once zero knowledge is really user friendly and it's gotten to the point where anyone can spin it up, you can use zero knowledge fraud proofs on Optimism. So you don't need to use optimistic fraud proofs. You can use the zero knowledge validity. So I think it's just one of those things where it allows developers and builders to kind of mix and match the best parts of their stack without needing to find a portfolio vendor, be tied to one person, or just have something like that really drives them crazy. So between WorldCoin, Base, and just a lot of other people heading that direction, I think it's been really interesting to follow.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, you guys know I love crypto and everything like that, and I'm pretty much a chart guy. I like looking for value, seeing where we can find opportunities, psychology, and how people are trading. But it's always refreshing to hear your take on some of these, new technologies, new blockchains, and stuff like that. Because I honestly didn't know what optimism was until you started dropping in the group chat. Like, I think I've just been so focused, zeroed in on Bitcoin that I honestly didn't look at this too much. But I've keep an eye on the chart. You're right. It's absolutely insane how it's holding up pretty strong, right, relative to the rest of the crypto market. I think that I mean, obviously, I still think that there's a massive move down for pretty much all altcoins, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm keeping an eye on this one. I think this is one that I'm gonna take your word for it. You're a smart dude, but also just looking at the price action of this and how strong it is, we want to look and see where there is community because that means that there's going to be a lot of money coming to those areas, right? And if we're seeing a lot of strength in some of these, that tells me that people believe in it. And, I think layer two is one thing that's going to be really massive. I think everyone thinks that layer two is going to be huge in this bull run, the one that's coming up next, along with AI. And I think privacy is also going to be one that they're going to be talking about. Not right now, but it's coming soon. I think, especially with WorldCoin, I think privacy is just going to go in tandem with it. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting one. I'm just going to look at the one chart real quick. I think this is putting in some type of corrective wave, honestly. So I'm just going to go with an ABC here. Maybe we're topping out somewhere around here, and then we just have a little bit more room down. But yeah, there's pretty good support back here from. I mean, hasn't been on TradingView very long. It hasn't been in existence very long. But if we
Mm-hmm.
just do here to let's say 50%. 50% puts us around 76 cents. I mean, that's not wrong. I think that's a pretty good level. I think you got some really good support down here, though, at 63 cents. So, I mean, 58, 60%, that's kind of in line with I'm anticipating, the 60 to 80% drop for a lot of altcoins. Stronger ones, obviously, closer to that 60% range. So, seeing, I don't know, maybe 63 cents. I'm going to put this line here. Might be in, where I start to dollar cost average in, or I might put some bids in. But yeah, I think this is a pretty interesting project. I mean, I'm still learning 100% how it's what it's even doing, man. I'm definitely deficient in the knowledge of blockchain when it comes to that, but I look for value, and this looks like one that hey, there might be a good upside going into maybe 2025, 2026.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely something to keep an eye on longer because, like you said, it was pretty much anyone who had used Ethereum, and I think there were three pretty basic criteria you were eligible to claim. So it's only been out for just over a year now, and yeah, I mean, you got to make sure the developer activity is maintained, right? If Base over time sees success, if WorldCoin sees popularity, or anyone else building, I think you really need to watch for that longevity because it seems like every year people are hot on a different layer two for whatever solution the lab behind it is created. So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on and just watch how it unfolds over the next year, 2 years,
Abs-
3 years.
Absolutely, and I'm just looking at the circulating supply, 716 million. Uh, that's pretty. I mean, I think that's low enough where we could definitely see some potential gains. Again, we need to see quantitative easing and a lot of money coming into markets for us to see any real, to even have any real price speculation going into some of the higher target ranges. But this is one that I'm definitely going to keep an eye on. I'm going to add this to my charts on TradingView. Maybe we'll talk about it more going forward, seeing how price reacts. But yeah, this is definitely one that I think is worth talking about, worth keeping in mind. And again, I know we're in a bear market, guys, but it's good to be doing the research and everything right now, so that when you do see the market drop, you know exactly what you want to be, shopping in the market for, what you want to be adding to your positions, to your portfolio. For me, this will be one. I want to pull up Bitcoin just because this is one that's been aggravating the shit out of me lately. And I think it's been aggravating a lot of people. And you and I were talking about this before the show again, that we think there is a lot of loans out there that are absolutely unhealthy. I mean, let me rephrase. There are a lot of loans out there that are absolutely unhealthy. You were telling me that on DeFi Llama, there's a lot of them. I'm looking at this price chart, and this is just so stupid right now. I'm looking at this. Uh, yeah, this is the daily. Daily doesn't even matter right now. I think the 4 hourly tells a better story. We went sideways, wick down, shot up, got rejected off the 50 moving average on the 4 hourly, and then we came back to 26K, went under to 25.8, and then now we're back at 26.085. If we there's definitely another move for Bitcoin coming. I will say that. I believe it's to the downside. And I think that's because we haven't finished the wave 5 move. And I honestly think it's a pretty sizable move. I think that we are likely to go, if we go under 26K and we're closing, substantially underneath it, we're not seeing any of this fuckery where it's going, 25.8, then it shoots back up to 26. I think if we see sustained price level underneath that 26K level, there's a good chance that we're going to probably go down to like that 23, 24. And I think that's because that 25,280 is a huge level of support. We've tested it 3 times already. I don't think we'll test it and keep it a 4th time. I think that's going to be the time that we do go underneath it. And maybe it becomes resistance on the way up when we go to retest it. But for Bitcoin right now, this is absolutely insane. I think this rejection off the moving average on the 4 hourly, the 50, and how overbought the stochastic RSI is, and it looks like it's coming to the downside here. I think this is one that we're going to have to keep an eye on, but I think that once we lose this 25,284, that's when we're going to start to see maybe fill in this gap to closer to like 23 to 24K level, and we could potentially see where the market should go. Again, I think that will hurt a lot of those loans that we were talking about too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, there's been quite a few loans. I'd say probably 3 or 4 that I've been tracking on DeFi Llama, and kind of the trend I've been seeing is whenever gas is rising, network fees are starting to increase, and it looks like there's going to be a substantial amount of volume. There's instant liquidity being added. A lot of they're not taking all the liquidity out of their wallets, right? Like a lot of them are sitting there with the amount to repay. So I'm assuming people are trying to hedge positions and avoid liquidation by just getting liquidity in at the last minute and just slowly riding to see where the ultimate break is if we end up headed to the upside or downside.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's I mean, this is a game right now at this point, right? Every man for himself. I think that's going to be the motto going into Q4 or the economic collapse, whichever comes first. It's very likely it could be either one at this point. But yeah, I think this is really what we're seeing here. It doesn't make a lot of sense again for how low the volumes are, but every time we get closer to a level, they're probably just DCAing to bring down that liquidation level to protect themselves. I think there's a lot more people out there that are extremely overexposed and are going to be extremely sensitive to Bitcoin's price because some of that collateral will absolutely be eaten up. And again, Binance, I think, is one that's we hear a lot about. Nothing crazy has happened, but I do know that there are other loans that they have out there. So if the price does go down, inevitably that's going to hurt them. And again, if Bitcoin's price goes down, that's going to hurt them just as much too, right? Mm-hmm. So pretty much everything is stacked. I mean, this is almost like 2008, how the mortgages were stacked on top of one another, but it just seems like this is a house of cards. When it does break, it's probably going to be very violent, very fast. I don't think that these corrective moves are going to be long lasting, but what do I know? I'm just a dude behind the computer screen. I do want to pull up just the total 3 because total 2, total 3, we'll look at those real quick because even though everything seems kind of green right now, I mean, relative to where it was maybe 2 days ago, we did see a bit of a bounce. This chart is still really bad, guys. If you look on the weekly for the total market cap, this is us. We're finding resistance on the total market cap on the 200 EMA, right? And we have the 50 here and the 200 here. If we keep finding resistance and we anticipate that there is going to be a sell-off in Bitcoin, right? There are going to be liquidations. I don't care if they're the biggest institutions in the world. If people know that there's money to be made by dragging the price down, they will. But right here, we're under the 200 EMA. And if Bitcoin goes down, alts are going to go down. It's just natural. The total market cap is going to come down. The only thing that's going to be propping this up maybe a little bit is stablecoin dominance. But again, I don't think that's going to be enough for how much we're going to see bleed out of the market. And that's going to bring us below this 200 EMA. And that 50 is going to be crawling. So the 50 is what we need to keep an eye on. The most important thing, though, for price action itself is we need to keep an eye on this 200 EMA, this yellow line on the weekly. If we keep closing below it, that's resistance. It means that we're likely going to go down as opposed to going up. Again, I don't care what the stochastic RSI says. If we look at the monthly, we're almost overbought on the monthly. And again, I think this is still going to go a little bit higher into the overbought come the end of August. If we look at total 3 right now, obviously the monthly looks like it's rising up. We are putting in this flag right here, right? This is a flag that tends to break to the upside. I don't think that if Bitcoin is likely to go down from here, that alts are going to go up. I think everything's going to be dragged down. But if we look at this on the weekly, same scenario, right? Weekly, we're underneath the 200 EMA, and here's the 50. And guys, this is getting close, right? We're getting close to the point where something's going to give. It seems like everything's just adding up going into September, October. I mean, this 50, 200 right here on the weekly, we have the DXY looking to break 104. We have pretty much Bitcoin and a lot of other ones lost key levels of support, key ranges, so that it's likely that they're going to go down to test key levels of previous support. And if they hold, well, then great. Otherwise, we're still closing below these 200 EMAs in the weekly. And again, total three, it might be 326 billion right now, but we have to account for stablecoin dominance and those market caps, which are definitely bringing this price up. So be cautious right now with what you're seeing, even though it looks like maybe markets some are coming bouncing back and people are optimistic. The macro is telling a very different story. And again, I don't know who's coming in to save us. I don't necessarily see anyone coming in to save us. I think that we're seeing a lot of deviation in some of these levels, even on the smaller time frames, which is not a good sign. Once we get to a certain level, we've liquidated pretty much everyone, and then it's likely to resume, bearish continuation. I mean, I'm looking at this is just Binance coin right here, BNB. It's been overbought on the 4-hourly. It's broke out of this channel. It's back in it. I don't think that this is going to be sustained much longer. I think a lot of these things are definitely in a place where they're extremely fragile, and we're seeing these short-term corrective movements. We're seeing a little bit of these, liquidations being saved by, whatever last bit of cash they have on hand to prop up their loans from being liquidated. But I don't see the money coming in. I think the volumes still remain low. I think we're in no different situation. We're just also putting in these corrective patterns that are likely just to break down from again. That's just seems like the state of the play or state of crypto right now. It's not necessarily the most exciting to the upside, but it's definitely exhilarating because we're just seeing these massive red pushes down when they do happen.
Yeah, no, I think I'm kind of on the same page as you. I think there's probably going to be a move to the downside. I think we're going to see a lot of alts get kind of checked as to whether or not their chain that they're supporting actually provides value as infrastructure, or whether it's just another chain that people put money into because they were talking a big talk in 21 when everyone was trying to invest and throw money into infrastructure and blockchain. But now it's like, hey, what have you returned? Oh, you haven't returned anything? Well, I need to get money back so I can raise again for whatever next fund. And at that point, we're starting to see exploits happen left and right too. It seems like every day there's another chain or another bridge that's losing anywhere between 2 and 20 million. So yeah, I mean, I think there's not really a lot of good narrative in the larger crypto scene. So
Yeah, here's the dangerous thing too with Bitcoin too. I'm just gonna make this last point, and then we'll sign off for the day. We have this this parallel channel that's an absolute bear flag. We've been trading it. It's FTX. We broke out of it, right? And I know on the daily we were oversold and there's room to the upside. However, we just got almost. I mean, it remains to be seen whether we get a bearish engulfing candle here. But we didn't even get a chance to hit that 27.2 level, which is the 200 EMA. You can see that this 50 is coming down pretty significantly. If you test the 200 EMA, it's likely you're going to test this parallel channel to see if you get rejected. Let's put it this way, it's probably going to get rejected anyways. However, seeing this right here and how the price is just hovering over 26.1 doesn't give me the most amount of confidence that a lot of people are going to be coming in. I think that we're seeing just a lot of fighting at this range, right? I think we're seeing a lot of fighting to defend that 26 level. We didn't even get a chance to test this 200 EMA, and we're likely get to see, another test of 25, 280. It's likely that we're going to break from these levels. It's just, while it's boring, the outlook for this on the charts just is not, it's not painting a picture that we think that this is going to bounce back at any time soon. I think there is just one more correction that we need to see. And again, I could chart this out real quick. This is just a 5-wave move I've seen here. 1, 2, 3. There's wave 4. I was putting up here earlier, but I think it's here. And I think we come down like that. I think that's ugly as could be, but that's where we are in this market. And, I don't think that's, I don't know. I just don't have any confidence in the price action. I think where they're fighting for just a little bit of a price level, and it's not going to be sustained. I think that we're going to get rejected. The fact that we didn't come up to this level and test that tells me that there's no real true move to the upside here. I think it's down before we even attempt a good correction to the upside.
No, I mean, I'm all here for cheap ETH, cheap Bitcoin. So if that's the case, hey, bring it on. I'll buy some up, and yeah, you know, I'm in it for the long run, so I'm not necessarily worried about just catching you know, a quick 20% here and there. I wanna stack some ETH, stack some Bitcoin, and next bull cycle, see what happens.
Oh, definitely. I think we're going to have some great opportunities with that. We're going to leave it there for today. I think we had a pretty informative episode. Hopefully, we dove into the charts a little more than we usually do. I think we talked pretty good about Bitcoin today and a lot of other assets. So I was glad to talk about optimism with you. So also glad to have you, man. Always going to be our number one guy for when it goes to blockchain knowledge and just knowledge in general. Glad to have you here. Everyone, thank you for being here today. Extremely excited for tomorrow's episode. We're going to talk a little bit about Jackson Hole. We'll also probably talk about some other topics in the market that maybe we aren't seeing too much in the headlines, but we appreciate you guys for being here. Randy, thank you for being here. Ace, Chris, Bundy, everyone who watches in the chat. I thank you too, but you already did, and you're also on the show today, Mr. House. But yeah, we're excited. If you could leave us a like, comment, subscribe, share it out to anyone. We really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. We hope you guys have a great day. We look forward to having you tomorrow. Take care, everyone.